Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? I'm not seeing any hands here. So with that, I will ask for approval of the agenda as it's written. Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. I'll ask that you do it at the time if there is any. Delegations. We do have a delegation this evening. Is Cheryl with us? Oh, she's coming in there now. Good evening, Cheryl. Welcome. Cheryl's going to talk to us about community gardens. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. You're on mute, though.
Sorry, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee. I also have Caitlin Schneider with me, who's on our board, and our newly elected secretary. So thank you for allowing us to present tonight. We have been running the community gardens. Equal Ground Community Gardens just finished its 13th year. And in 2021, we expect to be managing 20 community gardens and at least 70 of the host garden programs. We had 70 last year, so we're looking to hopefully double that. Next slide, please. So there's some quick stats here in terms of what we managed in 2020, and this, of course, was a COVID year. Just to highlight a couple of the stats there. Even in COVID, we still had over 185 hours of volunteer time dedicated to the community gardens. Or sorry, 185 volunteers and 3,200 hours. Over 15,000 seedlings and plants and seeds, and resulted in well over 13,000 pounds of harvest grown. The package that you received earlier had a different number, and that was a mathematical error on my part. It was actually much higher. Next slide, please, slide 3. Thank you. So community gardens are what we started doing 13 years ago. Typically speaking, our gardens are communal rather than plot or allotment gardens. We do have a couple of those. So an allotment garden is usually when someone pays for a spot and they grow their own food. Communal means all of the community comes out, they all plant together, and anyone is welcome to the harvest. So for the community gardens, there's 2 keys. The first key is removing any barriers, making the process as simple as possible, making sure it's easy for residents to come out and be part of the program. And being okay with things not always going perfectly is also key. Rain barrels tends to be, or water, I guess, access tends to be one of the things that need to be considered for any community garden space. If there's water access already, of course, that's easy. In the city of Brantford, what we do, if there is not access, we put in rain barrels and the city comes up and fills those up once a week. And next slide, please. And Caitlin's going to talk about host gardens.
Okay, I'm not on mute. No, I'm not. Okay, so we started the host garden program last year when we weren't able to open up the majority of our community gardens. So we went to the communities and asked if they would offer up some land or they would start a new garden to help us support our local food banks. Last year in the county, we had 20 participants. Right now, returning, we have 12. We just opened it up to the public on Friday, February 12th. So it's still a little early in the garden season. So we're hoping by the end of March, beginning of April, we have a lot more registrations. We offer, for all the host gardens, we offer all the plants and seeds. If they require any other items such as soil or bed frames, we do what we can to accommodate. Last year, we donated a couple bed frames to help out. One of the best things I found out about the host gardens was the Zoom training sessions that we created. They were weekly meetings that we did that we discussed topics pertaining to where we were in the garden season. So the beginning of the season, it was where we grew the seeds, how far apart, and then later on we were all discussing like the different bugs and insects that we were finding, which I found that was the best part of the host gardens. We gave people a sense of community and we helped them come together as a group so you weren't so lonely during that time when COVID was really taking a toll on a lot of people. From our host garden program, we have gained 2 new board members from the county, which will only strengthen our relationship between the city and the county. We would like to take this time right now to also thank Jake Searson and all the help that he has provided us and the host garden program, and Councillor Leferrier, making the connection and the constant support that he's given us at Eco Grounds Community Gardens. Next slide, please.
So that brings us to the partnership. As I said earlier, the key is to remove red tape and make it as simple as possible. We're happy to work with staff and anyone that's involved to create a process that works on both sides. The average cost of a 5-bed community garden startup would be it ranges between $500 and $600. That includes the frame, the soil, the plants, the seeds. And that's assuming rain barrels are needed at this location and composters. The partnership would require some infrastructure help depending on where you want the community garden and what is available and what's needed. We can offer a lot of those things, and we do that on a cost recovery basis where possible. There was 2 barriers that we came across. One barrier was just the limitation on the time that the food bank was open. And so our partners that grew the gardens, their host gardens in the County of Brant, couldn't always get to the food bank on time. So for the limited hours that they were open. So perhaps there's an opportunity for staff to find other areas where there could be drop-offs, and then the food bank could pick up from them the days that they're open. So that might be an easy thing to solve. And last slide, please. Second to last slide, actually. So the benefits, the obvious benefit is always the healthy food. It's healthy, local, it's fresh. This is not about marginalized people. This is about everyone. There are lots of people who can afford to buy all their groceries who have never had something fresh from a garden. It's exercise, it's the environment, there's food security, there's life skills. We found out during those Zoom meetings that, you know, people had wanted to try this for a long time, and you know, amongst all the negative things that COVID provided, it created a perfect storm for people to have the time to grow their own gardens, have their own food, and do something as a family. And then there's the other things that aren't quite as obvious, like crime reduction. You get people out of their houses and into the parks and on their porches and visiting with their neighbors, and that's a natural crime reduction. It's been proven. And then when we're not in COVID, there's a Know Your Neighbor program where we have the volunteers, they flyer the neighborhood and say, come for a potluck in our park, let's meet our neighbors, which is also great for crime reduction. Next slide, please. So in summary, I guess, let's do this. We're happy to work together. County of Brant made it very easy last year. We hope we continue both with host and with community gardens. We know there's some interest out there, and we're happy to do whatever we can to help facilitate. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Cheryl and Caitlin. Questions? Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Cheryl, this one's to you through the chair. One of the things we did, we participated this year, our family, and it was good for the kids. It was good for myself. My wife loves gardening. We got some beds we made and purchased locally as well. One of the things we noticed though was our local food pantry did have some ability to take on our fresh produce or fresh food. So I don't know what your experience as Eco Ground is with food pantries, but I know ours in Paris has recently sort of upgraded to take on more fresh produce and store it. Is that something maybe you could speak to a little bit regarding how maybe food pantries could take the place because they're open 24/7 and easy to walk over and drop off, especially in COVID times?
Yeah, again, that's something that we're happy to figure out processes to make sure that it's getting to, and make sure that the people that are growing in the area can get it there. I know that the Paris Food Bank was very grateful for what we gave them, but we're looking to open it up to say, even if you're sharing it with your neighbors, that is still getting this out to the community. So we're looking at ways of still tracking that. Community gardens is very, very much a qualitative project, so the quantitative stuff is taking some work. But we're opening it up that, look, you're getting this stuff, but you're also sharing with your community. So whether that's the food bank or the food pantries or neighbors, we would just look for more information on that to make sure that we're getting that out to the participants.
And then, if I can, Mr. Chair, then tracking it through people internally tracking. On the quantitative part, I wanted to also ask about the spread, because I know when I was chatting with Jake, when we connected about the gardens in sort of the rush of COVID, and we only had a very short period of time to get people registered. We still had 20, which was great. But if my memory serves, I know when we went by your place to pick up the seeds on one of the first days, and on the Zoom meetings, there were people from all over the county. It was definitely not just a Paris thing. Do you have any of that data? Because I have a feeling if we get the more traditional gardens as well, they'll be spread. There'll be interest across the entire county and not just in one neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, and I know that Caitlin might be able to help, but I know there was St. George, there was Paris. We just had an inquiry from Burford today, someone that's got half an acre that wants to participate. Caitlin, do you have?
There was, last year there was people from Haldeman County, like out Indian Line way too. Or not Haldeman County, but like out that way.
Yeah, it was pretty spread out. I think in terms of, there was 20, and I think three, maybe 4 of those were in Paris. So
yeah, Old Onondaga Road too. There was.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, and thanks for partnering so quickly in a crisis, and hopefully we can do a partnership that's without a crisis attached.
Absolutely. Councillor House.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, first to the delegation, thank you for the presentation. This is a very interesting subject, and I was happy to learn more about it. In non-pandemic times, when it's when you have your communal gardens, are the majority of them in municipal parks? And my second question is, how do you manage the vandalism side of things? And I don't mean rabbits. If you could just speak to that a little bit, and just so I can visualize the scenario again in the more traditional times. Thank you.
Sure. Pre-COVID, we had 33 sites, and 15 of those were in city parks. And some of them, they were communal, but they were more specific to the actual facility. So Woodview Mental Health and Autism Services, they put a communal garden in, and they incorporated it into their programming for their families. Vandalism is always the first thing that comes up, and it's very, very rare. I will tell you, the things that get vandalized are the things that people think that the municipality owns. So a shed. The rain barrels often will be drained, but the plants almost never, ever get vandalized. So I think there's really a neat kind of psychology project in this. And when we had the same question with the city of Brantford, Parks were really concerned about that. And they said, well, how much damage do you get in all your flower gardens? And once I asked that, they remembered one occasion with an intoxicated person finding their way home and accidentally walked through a flower bed. So for whatever reason, that is, people do not damage the plants. Sometimes the infrastructure and the rain barrels can be a challenge.
Okay, that's good to hear. Mr. Chair, one quick follow-up.
Yep, go ahead.
And so if 50% of your sites, your communal sites, are not in municipal parks, what are the types of locations where these are found?
Yeah, they're well everywhere. So there's the Brantford Mosque, there's Myrtleville, Myrtleville House, there's Woodview, like I said. Of course, you caught me drawing a complete blank. This is funny because my brain's on 2020 right now.
Fire hall, police station.
Thank you, police station, fire hall, thank you. All the ones that are really obvious. For a number of years, we had one at EMS. They struggled just being able to man it. There's a couple daycare centers. It's quite varied. And we just had another inquiry from another school today too. So as I said, really our mandate is really, if we can help you make it happen, we'll do whatever we can to remove the barriers for it.
Perfect. Any other questions? Councillor Miller, and then Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Cheryl and Caitlin. Yeah, I echo the sentiments. Thank you for coming. It's a great program. Can you guys just talk a little bit about the funding? Right now, is it all municipal funding, or do you get donations, or provincial, federal? Where's the funding coming from?
Yeah, so we're a little bit complicated. There is a budget line for specifically the sites that are in parks. So this does not include all city properties, just parks. And we have a specific policy for parks. And so there's a budget line item for that for $25,000 a year. And that's infrastructure stuff. So if they're going to run a water line, or if they need to redo the beds, or they need to put benches in or whatever, we still supply all the plants, all the seeds. A lot of it is donation. We used to run under the Grand River Health Center's umbrella because we weren't a nonprofit at that time. And we did win one of the 100 Women That Care and 100 Men That Care. So we were lucky to bank some money that way. And then a lot fundraising, I mean, everything from bottle drives to grant applications, but the only steady funding is for those park sites from the city of Brantford.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say to Cheryl, I thank you for all your hard work on this, Cheryl. I know you grow a lot of seedlings yourself, probably. It's just a great program to get people out and teach them to garden, helping people that don't get fresh food have it. I can't say enough about all the work you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward.
Mayor Bailey.
Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, Mayor.
We had a meeting the other night where I mentioned your name and your gardens. Inwell does a lot of community gardens, and I toured the gardens that in Simcoe that they do with most of their builds for their infill sites and things like that. And I've seen them work down east. We were down in Newfoundland and things, and although the season is very short, so is money very short down in Newfoundland sometimes. And the community gardens sustain entire blocks and entire pieces of Newfoundland at St. John's, and the funny little coastal ports and things like that. So it's an amazing thing, and you're doing it so well. I'm surprised you aren't getting funding from all over the place, but we do want to incorporate it in some of our new builds in the county of Brant, be it a seniors building or anywhere else. So we really are excited. I don't know whether this is something that after you teach us everything we need to know, we would be able to do on our own, or we would be able to do just with checking in on you people. I don't know how it actually works, the program. I've seen your results though, and it's pretty amazing. And it is because of you. So thank you for everything you do and for not dropping the ball on this, because I know that people that are attached to it love it. So well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Okay. With that said, Councillor Antosky and Caitlin, thank you for coming this evening and showing us all about this.
Thank you.
very much for your time, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so Council, how do we want to proceed with this? Do we want to receive this, or who would like to make a motion for this delegation? Councillor Ferrier.
I'd move that we receive for information and ask for an update from staff in 2 cycles about the partnership for this year.
Seconder for that, Mayor Bailey. Any questions on that? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, there we go. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on, section 5, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of January 19th, 2021. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Councillor Bell, any questions? Any questions from the minutes? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had requested a copy of the boundary roads, a list, and I haven't seen that yet. So if someone could make a note of that, please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I think we've got Mr. Walton jumping in here. Would like to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're working on putting a map together on this, and we intend to send it out with the Friday files this Friday.
Very good.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the minutes from January 19th? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any business arising from those minutes other than Councillor Gatward there? And I think she's got her question answered. Any other questions? Or business arising? Okay, I don't see any. Oh, so we will move on. Section 7, 7.1, consent items to be approved. Get a mover to get it on the table. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Chambers. For report RPT-21-35, omnibus fleet for roads, report to be submitted tomorrow morning is what it says. So we've got it on the table with a seconder. Is there anybody going to speak to this or? Okay, I guess Councillor Chambers, go ahead.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, are you doing these one at a time, or are we voting on the first one?
My understanding here, we'll go for 711 and then we'll go, unless you want to put them all through, I think we should separate them, or how does council feel? No,
Mr. Chairman, I did want to separate 713 from the consent items, and I don't know how you want to deal with that, but
yeah, okay.
I just have some questions and comments about 713.
Yeah, okay. So this is for 711 only, okay, just for the omnibus. Any questions on 711? We have a mover and a seconder. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. For 712, the Ontario Regulations RPT-2136, summary report on the County of Brant's municipal drinking water system. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Councillor McAlpine. That is a great report. Any questions on that? Councillor Bell and then Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A question on page 30 of the report, and the 3 or 4 pages after that, which cover the Paris water supply facilities. I noted that the maximum usage on a daily basis is 50% of the capacity, indeed only 23% of monthly capacity. My question is this in line with the assumptions we made for the Paris Master Servicing Plan timeline?
General Manager Walton.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Bell. Yes, we will have calculated, I believe, the last 3 years worth of flows into the calculations that went into the Paris Master Servicing Plan. What controls your capacity, your system, or your anticipated development that you can take really is your maximum day flow. Certainly, when you look at the average day flows there, we would theoretically have lots of capacity. And I know, Councillor Bell, you asked a question through the rate study about what we could equate to, cost savings for conservation. And there clearly is ways that you can save a lot of money for future infrastructure by conservation.
Good with that, Councillor Bell?
Good, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, I don't have the page of the report in front of me, but we all know around this table the supply issues in Mount Pleasant. And we're getting near capacity a couple of days during July. But in the report, it was noted that the manganese filters were at 96% capacity one day in July. Is this something that should be addressed? Can we address it, or is this? I'm just wondering, is there anything being done about that?
Mr. Walton?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller. Well, what happened in July was we had extreme amounts of water being used for irrigation. So as soon as we put further restrictions on irrigation, we brought it back to within the capacity went from clearly almost 100% of the water we could supply being used down to in and around 55% of the system capacity. So really, it's questionable if water's used in a reasonable manner there, whether there is a supply problem or not. The other thing we've got to remember is that we have an agreement with City of Brantford to supply their residents in Tudela Heights for the next plus or minus 5 years. After that, we lose a lot of customers off that system. There probably will be some development after that, but clearly we'll have quite a bit of capacity at that time.
Councilor Miller?
I guess my question is directly then, Rob. Do you think we'll see any limits hit on these filters if we have another dry year in 2021, in 2022, before before we switch to lights over?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Miller. We intend in this system and in all our systems to do some education and promotion of water conservation. And as you'll note from the presentation last month, we also proposed to implement a strategy of higher rates for irrigation usage, which probably will help to curb this as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good with that. Any other questions for 712? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, my understanding is Councillor Chambers would like 713 pulled, so I'm going to move on to 714, RPT-21-47, which is the 2020 Annual Municipal Aquifer Monitoring Report. Can I get a mover? Mayor Bailey and Councillor Coleman. Any questions on that report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we will go back to 713. Can we just get a mover to put it on the floor here first? Councillor Laferriere, Councillor Coleman. Question to Councillor Chambers. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The report alludes to Broadview Park, which really isn't a park at all. And I think the report does mention that. It calls it a passive area, which it really isn't either. What that area is, if you look at the diagram, when Broadview subdivision was developed, that was a water-prone area. And that area that is what they're calling the Broadview Park is actually a water recharge area. I think there used to be, there still is, I think, but signs there that have warnings about water accumulations. That is part of a water drainage system for that subdivision. And if you know the area, you can follow it with me. If you start south of Highway 53, the water accumulates south of 53. It comes under 53 in a cement culvert and winds itself back behind and into the recharge area, which we're calling Broadview Park. The water then goes through a series of roadside ditches and culverts, eventually to a covered pipe that goes across Maple Avenue, across the Clark subdivision, and into across the Monk's Field and into Whiteman's Creek. I have pictures of that area, and basically canoeing in that area. So the water does accumulate in that area. It hasn't for a long time, but there are pictures of people canoeing right in that area where that recharge passive park area is. So I have concerns about putting hydro stations in a water recharge area in a winter runoff that could flood. What happens sometimes is the road ditches get filled with snow and the water backs up into that recharge area. There's a weeping tile system under that recharge area that may or may not be disturbed with what they're planning to do. So I'm not sure that that's an appropriate place to put hydro stations in an area that can and has in the past been up to 2 feet, 3 feet of water. The report also says that the Ward 4 councillors were notified. I'm not sure Councillor Miller may have been, but I can't recall that I was notified by Ontario Hydro. I may have been, it may have slipped my mind, I may not have got it, but there have been, also alludes to that they had a site meeting. Councillor Miller may wish to speak to that, but before he does, the resolution alludes to having community feedback. So we're being asked to enter into an easement agreement subject to public consultation. I'm just wondering what happens if 2 or 3 of the neighbors, once they see what is being proposed, object to it. Where does that leave the process, and what, if anything, can be done or to reconcile the fact that they're actually messing with the drainage system of that whole subdivision and the area south of that. So staff may wish to comment on that, but I'm really reluctant at this time to support that proposal.
Is there somebody from staff that wants to speak to that? I've got you, Councillor Gatwer. Just 1 second, please. Nobody from staff is going to speak to that? Okay. Oh, Cindy, are you coming in to speak to that?
Yes, I can comment on it. And Kathy Valentine's also here with us this evening to provide some commentary. I know Kathy's been working on this for quite some time, and I think the consultation process was done quite some time ago prior to the pandemic, which is likely why many of us can't recall what happened several months ago. And this was an attempt to put closure to this file. Perhaps Kathy can comment on whether any drainage issues were identified, because I know she has been in touch with the operations department on this as well.
Kathy?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we did. I have seen that area flood once in the 12 years I think I've been here. So it is an infrequent occurrence, but it can happen, there's no doubt. The transformers that they are proposing do sit up a little bit higher. So we don't believe there's a threat to those, and Hydro is completely aware of what this area is as a stormwater management site, and they were fine with the design work as they proposed. We did do the consultation about 2.5 years ago, so that's probably why you don't recall, but there was an email sent to the councillors And there was, I believe, a Friday file memo that went out as well. So it just has been taking a couple of years to get this pulled together. So maybe that's why you can't recall, because it has been quite a while. But at this point, there's been no issues raised from Public Works as far as the drainage piece goes.
Okay, so Councilor Gatward and Councilor Ferrier, I have you there. I'm just going to go back to Councilor Chambers here to respond to that.
Just with regard through you, Mr. Chairman, to the staff, I'm pretty certain that that area is part of the drainage in the subdividers agreement. That area would be recognized as a water recharge area, and the drainage system that would be in the subdividers agreement. And I'm just wondering how and if and whether we can somehow change. Are we not violating the subdividers agreement by putting things in that area that is part of the drainage system for the whole subdivision?
Response to that?
I'll attempt to respond to that, Mr. Chair. I don't really have a lot of background on, that subdivision was built quite a long time ago, so I don't know if I've ever actually seen the agreement. It's probably 20 plus years old. However, I don't believe there are any issues, and Hydro has had infrastructure as far as poles on that site for many, many years. So this is kind of a consolidation to make it more efficient use of the site for the hydro to be, reliable source. So that's their goal, is to make sure they have a reliable service for this area.
Okay. I see Mr. Walton. Just 1 second, Councilor Chambers. Mr. Walton, you want to add to that?
Mr. Chair, I haven't had any dealings on this file at all. I am a little bit familiar with that site, being toured around there one day by one of other staff members, though. I'm certain in a short period of time that we could confirm whether there's any issues at all. And I imagine my staff has been working with Kathy on this. I can't confirm or deny that, but I certainly can check. We can certainly check into that between now and council meeting. I'm not sure what the timing required from Kathy's group is, but she can let you know that.
Okay. One last comment to Councilor Chambers, and then we'll move to Councilor Gatward.
I was just going to clarify that the Demonk or the Broadview subdivision would be probably the late 80s, or probably 87, 88, something like that, when that was constructed. It may be 89, something like that. The other thing is that there's a hydro box of some sort. I don't know what they call it, a transformer, what is in one of the ditches on Broadview Street. And that has been an encumbrance to the road. We wanted to fill in the ditches and pipe for the aesthetics of Broadview Street. And there's a hydro box there that was an encumbrance to that project as well. So there's been issues with hydro installations in that area before. And the last thing that I'll say is there is a parkette down there somewhere, and the municipality, the former township of Burford, was going to sell that at one time, and the whole neighborhood erupted. So I'm not so sure that a proper consultation was done in the neighborhood, but I think you have to tread carefully with this one. And I know if it's been going on a couple of years, the Ontario Hydro may wish to redo their consultation with the neighborhood and the Ward 4 councillors, because I think some light could be shed on what they're trying to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that information. Councilor Gatward and then Councilor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, when I first looked at the diagram, I thought, why are they putting it right in the center of the park? I called some people in Burford that I know who live in that area, and they said on Sunday there was several people in that area. A woman was pulling a sled with little children. There was people walking their dogs. So it is a park. The community considers it a park. They're playing there, and I don't think putting it right in the center is a good idea. As Councillor Chambers said, if there's a drainage system, it could interfere with that when you start digging. If they want to put it there, can't they put it to the east on the line between the farm field? And that possibly could have less of a chance of impacting the drainage tiles that are on site. And it would also make the park a little nicer. I know that it's for a recharge area, but when it's summertime and it's dry, people in the community there use it for a park. The nearest one is 15-minute walk away from here. And
So sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Gabbard. So your question is, can it be moved to a different location? Is that your question?
yeah, because I can't support where it is. I don't think it's in a good spot. And I think that the community won't like, I mean, it's supposed to be, it's called Broadview Park. There's no playground equipment, but maybe the kids will climb the fence around the transformers. Who knows? If there's
Well,
nothing else.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't think we can go. I don't think we can go down that road, Councillor Gatward. But
I
let's
know.
get an answer to your question here. The question was: has there been an opportunity to move it somewhere else in the park?
Yeah. Why is it in the middle?
Can anybody comment to that? Kathy or Cindy, in the discussions? Has there been any discussions with Kathy? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did look at the site to look at the least disturbance to the site. And if the further you go back in, the more infrastructure you need to add. So that's why that selection was made in that area. So that we could get the road, kind of little maintenance road that needs to go into that. So you're going to take away more green space if you put more road in to get back further, but it's certainly something that could be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that good, Councillor Gatward?
Yeah, because I can't support where it is.
Okay.
I think it's moved.
Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if this isn't direct enough for this topic, please let me know and I'll address it another way. But I'm wondering why this is coming to us in the piece about if the councillors, and it sounds like they were at some point, talked to about this from that ward. Just this week, I received a complaint from a resident about a similar item going up at Fair Lane and Curtis Ave without any notice to residents, without any notice to councillors, without, it sounds like, possibly any notice to the county from Hydro One. Now, I understand that the easement piece, Hydro One, if I understand correctly, has an easement, a certain level of easement on certain areas already. So if they have that easement, there's no need for them to contact us or residents to let them know about essentially construction of towers. But this is different because they need to buy property from us in order to erect it. Is that a clarification? I guess I'm asking for clarification from staff about how this works and how this works when they already have easement routes.
Somebody can comment to that? Oh, Michael's piping in here. Mr. Bradley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think, you know, probably the difference between this and a lot of the work that our local utilities would do is, it's my understanding, if the local utilities are doing work on the road allowance, they can do that. There's legislative ability for them to do work on the road allowance. If they're doing land work on a private property, and this would be a private, you know, it's a municipally owned property, we would have fee simple title to that property. Then they would need an easement, which is what they're requesting, and it's a different process. It's basically they need an ownership interest in the property, and that's what they've requested from the county, and that's what this report is putting forward to council. So hopefully that clarifies Councillor LaFerrier's question.
Thank you. If I could have one more, just
Yep.
more broadly, then could we have a friendly request to Hydro One that they notify us of this kind of work in the future? Though it sounds like they don't need to when they already have rights to the easement. To me, it's just a friendly thing to be able to do. And maybe they don't know, and maybe if we ask, I know we did something similar around the train tracks. If they're going to block traffic for a long period of time, they let us in the OPP know now. But is that something we could just informally request that they try to let us in? Because if not, we're going to get negative community Hydro One situations occurring.
Are we able to ask that? Mr. Bailey, Bradley, sorry.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, and certainly we can pass that on. I also think there's it's important. Councillor Chambers mentioned there's another box up the road, and that's actually an Energy Plus box. So there's two utilities in some of these areas, Hydro One and Energy Plus service areas, but up in parts of Burford, and they both have, Hydro One has infrastructure through some of Energy Plus's service territory. So it can be a bit complex. We can pass that request on. I think given what happened last week, as you were mentioning in Paris, it could help with our own communication with our residents. So.
Very good. Okay, so I think I've got Mayor Bailey, then Councillor Bell, then Councillor Miller. Mayor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Kathy. First of all, it's a great report. Thank you. I think we have to we have to listen to Councillor Chambers here. I mean, if he knows that this thing is flooded maybe more than once, Kathy, you know that it's been once, but even once is too many. But if it's happened maybe 3 or 4 times, I'm not sure that it's the best place for a big presentation of any kind of hydro. I think also Councillor Gatward is right. It shouldn't be in the center of anything that the Burford people are considering a park and using as a park. I think we would be more well served to put some sort of a laneway down and have whatever they need to have happen at the end of a laneway, so that when you look at this park, it hasn't changed to most people. I can't support it the way it is because there's too many other ways we can tweak it to make it right and to not upset a lot of people. And I think as long as Kathy thinks it's doable, to do that laneway down to the back and let Hydro do what they need to do back there and keep the visual of the park. Because you know what, an area that floods, we have them around St. George here too. Beautiful, beautiful. The only thing that grows there is willow trees because you can swim in it sometimes on either side of St. George Road. It just disappears with water. And it wouldn't be a great place to put a hydro tower at all. So I'm just saying that I think we better yield to Councillor Chambers, because if we don't and something happens, I think we'll look pretty foolish. So just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, 2 cents worth from me. I use that park with my grandson. It's one of the few spaces you can actually go and play with children or with dogs. It is possible, I think, to take Kathy's line and move the transformer station off the park just to the east. There is an access there, and I would certainly support Councillor Chambers' hold on this.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to reiterate what Kathy said, yeah, we did get notice of this coming 2.5 years ago, like she says, and I know I had it on my calendar. I could not make it. It was just my work schedule tends to get crazy at certain times, so I wasn't able to attend. Having said that, 2.5 years ago is a long time, and I mean, I know personally 4 residents that have passed on in that subdivision. So, I mean, to say that the residents were consulted, I wouldn't say the current ones have been consulted for sure. So, having said that, having read the information before, I don't ever recall them talking about 62 decibels coming from this thing. Certainly not the flood issues that Councillor Chambers brought forward, or possibly violating a subdivision agreement. So all the concerns and all that, I don't know. I'd certainly be willing to defer this until all these issues can be addressed, but I'm not sure how we should proceed. But I think I would support that at this time.
Well, we do have a motion. We do have the recommendation on the table and seconded. Did you want to put a deferral in, Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I'll put a deferral in. And basically just to turn this back to staff and ask them to look into the concerns raised tonight, and again to maybe Hydro One / staff meet with the neighbors, certainly the newer neighbors, anyways, to see what their concerns are.
No, duly noted. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Chambers? Any other questions on this? So we have a motion to defer. Mayor Bailey?
Kathy, through you, Mr. Chair. Kathy, do you know what the turnaround time would be for you to get that work done? Is it messing up any major plans, or is it stopping anybody in their tracks?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe so. I think this is the summer project, so we have a little bit of time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a deferral on the table and seconded. No further questions. All in favor of the deferral? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so now that gets rid of all of 7.1. We're now going to move on to 7.2, consent items to receive as information. Somebody want to put them on the table? What I'd like to do is I'd like to put them all on the table. Are you good with that, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Councillor Coleman is a second. Are you good with all of them? Anybody want any pulled? Councillor Miller?
7.22.
Okay. Councillor Bell? 722? Anybody else? Councillor Gatward?
I'd like to speak to 7.2.4.
Okay, so you don't want it pulled, you just want to speak to it?
Yeah, do you want me to do that now, Mr. Chair?
Okay, go ahead, please, Councillor.
Thank you. I think it's a real shame that the province is closing this first-class facility in Gravenhurst, our fire college in the province. I agree with this particular municipality that's written the motion on it. There's a lot of small communities in the province. Brant is a smaller county. And I believe in the past, we have sent our firemen to the college and perhaps our administration staff as well. So have we ever received an explanation or been notified from the province or our MPP why they're doing this?
Anybody aware of any notification as to why? I'm going to take that as a no, Councillor Gatward.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would, perhaps I'll contact MPP Booma and see if he knows. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have 7.2.1, 7.2.3, and 7.2.4 all on the floor with a seconder. Any other questions on any of those three? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to 7.22, Councillor Miller, then Councillor Bell wanted to speak to this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Very direct question. What level of iron in our drinking water, at what level do we say we should start treating that? And I refer you to page 153 of our report, where the standard or the limit's 0.3 milligrams per liter. In Scotland, they're 0.6 milligrams per liter. Apparently that's not a health risk, but I guess you can see it, you can notice it starts to leave a stain. So at what level is that something that you start to treat where it becomes maybe an issue for the equipment or the basins or even a health risk? And if we don't know that, I would certainly take that information in a Friday file.
Mr. Walton, you're going to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller partially answered his own question. Iron is an aesthetic objective, and 0.3 milligrams per liter is the level at which you should consider whether it's going to cause other issues for you. And above that, there is no actual requirement to treat for it. You just, as you already noted, what you need to look at as to what the other issues that it may cause for you in your system. Iron in pipes, if you have oversized pipes for things like fire flow, sometimes you'll have iron settling out, and then when it'll get stirred up occasionally. Certainly people on rural wells will know that if you have high iron, yes, it can stain your sinks and your toilets. And it can, if it gets stirred up, it can cause problems to your white laundry. I'm not aware of any issues in Scotland that it's causing for the system there.
Okay, but my question, okay, so a couple of questions kind of answered, but my question is, where would we start to see a health risk? Any idea on that one?
It's an aesthetic parameter in the levels that we see it here. It's not a health risk.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I think. I'm looking at page 112 of the report, and it talks about additional non-regulatory raw water sampling on the Telfer wells. And my question is, do we have any exceedance of any items on that list? On the other reports, it actually shows where we are within the limits. Here, we don't actually mention what the limits are, so it's left open. I presume we're not exceeding. I presume we would say if we were, but because this has been so sensitive to people in Paris and the old group that looked after the water supply when the Dufferin pit was being built, were quite sensitive to what was going on with water supply. So I think just as a public relations step, it would be appropriate, I think, to put in the limits and then indicate that we're not exceeding them.
Comments to that, Mr. Walton?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Bell. That's actually a great suggestion that we put the limits in there as to what they are. Do not believe any of these exceed the limits. And what happens is that even when you do things outside of the regulatory requirements, you have to report them if you're outside the limits. So none of these will be outside the limits. And it is a good suggestion that we put that in the next one.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, that was the only two people I think that had questions on 722. So that being said, it is on the table and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to staff reports. 8.1 RPT 21-40, the Southwest Community Transit Memorandum and Understanding, MOU. Can I get a mover to put that on the floor? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Chambers. Questions on this? This is a great report. Very interesting. Councillor Chambers and then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make committee aware, we've all read the report, but I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to SCORE for their involvement and not spearheading, but certainly being a crucial partner in this whole endeavor. We have been working on this collaboratively for 2 or 3 years now, and things are starting to fall into place, as we all know. So I just wanted to highlight the involvement of SCORE and the members of SCORE, and just to say that if you read through the memorandum, the proposed memorandum of agreement, the chairman of the executive committee that is going to be in charge with carrying on with the collaboration is a member of SCORE by definition. And those of you who know Alison Warwick, I think she's the mayor of Thames Centre for Middlesex County. She has been really involved with this and on behalf of SCORE. And the SCORE board has put her name forward for chairing the association that the memorandum of agreement alludes to. So it's a work in progress, and there's certainly many ways to coordinate and collaborate, and to the benefit of the people, not only in Brant County, but in the other counties and jurisdictions involved. So SCORE, along with the Western Wardens Association, have been very instrumental in this, and working with the provincial government. And the seeds were planted initially by the Western Wardens Caucus and the SCORE Development Corporation with the minister at presentations, at conferences. And we all like to think that they do have value to the delegations we do put forward, and they do. And this is an example of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, thank you for that. And a special shout out, I guess, to the chair of the SCORE EDC there, Mr. Chambers. Councillor Bell, and then Councillor LaFerriere.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought it was a very interesting report, and I think the concept is very good, but I'm wondering how practically we can see it working. Are we envisaging a bus service within the county that runs to the county borders and thereby connects with adjacent counties? So I'm really interested in how we are going to integrate into this. And if somebody could give me a little bit of insight, I'd be very happy.
I think Allison has come on to do that. Allison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the main idea behind this transportation system is integrating the existing transit systems that each municipality has in place. So for example, if we were to have touch points within the county that we know we could potentially connect with, for example, Oxford, we could alter our routes with our Brant E-Ride system so that they pick up at those points and transit across the county. And that's just an example. So there could be future iterations of this that could have multiple routes going through, connections to the GO system and to other larger systems that go into the GTA. So this is really about exploring all of those options and agreeing to cooperate together to alter the existing systems that we already have and have an economy of scale. So if there were future purchases or if there were future upgrades that we wanted to make that made sense from a regional point of view, we can do that more efficiently than we could independently.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. I think that helps me an awful lot. I think if we're open to those kind of suggestions, then I think this is a terrific step forward. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor LaFerriere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been purposely really quiet when it comes to public transit discussion at this table and at council the last year, not all the previous years before that, as Councillor Chambers gives me a double take. But one of the things, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up just a little there,
okay.
Councillor.
So I've been purposely pretty quiet about public transportation when it's come up to this table because I don't want to always be the public transit person. And one of the things that I do want us to kind of note when we continue talking about public transit in future meetings is this happening in the background, because in the midpoint, I guess, the sort of mesoscene, the connecting of multiple communities through our community is going to be a really big deal when it comes to the economy for Ontario in this region, and for people who live here in this community as well. And if we were just doing the taxi service and the old model we were doing before, we wouldn't be able to contribute to this conversation, and we wouldn't be able to contribute to this economic engine that can happen where people might easily get between Norfolk and Kitchener on public transit in the future. And I've seen these models work. They've worked in big spaces like Ottawa and Gatineau, where they share a number of public transit portions of their routes and infrastructure. And we saw a little bit of this. Councillor Miller can attest to this when we were working on public transit early. I mean, Ride Norfolk does do intercommunity transit, and they do it through the County of Brant. And so we're already there to some degree. But it's really important when we talk about the future of the system. Again, we're a small community in terms of population, but when we border 8 other communities and 8 other municipalities, we are really integral to the future of interconnected community transit. And if we we ever opt out of a system like that, or whenever we make changes, I think we have to keep that in mind for the sort of greater public good. And I just wanted to earmark that before, so that when we talk about public transit in the future, because it will come up every 6 months or so, to keep that in mind.
Oh, well said. Mayor Bailey.
Yeah, and thank you. And through the chair, sitting on both the wardens, Ontario Wardens board, not board, membership and SCORE. I sit on SCORE with Councillor Chambers, and you wouldn't believe all of the ideas that are floating around. And one of these, 2 or 3 of these ideas are going to click, and when they click, they're going to work. We should stop thinking about big buses. We are in a county of big buses. We have Sharps. We're always thinking school buses and Greyhounds and all that kind of stuff. And it's not the way we need to think at this time in our history. I don't think there's all kinds of things beyond a bus that are going to work. And you have all kinds of very creative people in SCORE and in the Wardens group that are thinking about this all day long, because no one wants it to work more than all of them. Because they're all just like us. Well, they're not like us. They don't have as much going on as we do, but they want it to work as much as we do. So I think if we can get our minds away from big buses and maybe going to maybe one city, maybe going to Brantford, there's all kinds of people closer to Burford and Calvin and all those places that want to go to Woodstock. They want to go to Simcoe. They don't all want to go to Brantford. And people in Glen Morris want to go to Cambridge. They want to go to North. It's such a county that we just don't think about all of the other borders that border us, other than the big obvious one with the buses. And that's not the way we're going to fall into this. I don't believe. I believe we're all going to get wherever we need to go in smaller ways, but very efficient, with people who want it to happen as badly as we do. And nobody needs to make a whole lot of money. We just need to make sure the people are serviced.
Absolutely.
So I think we're in very good shape, Mr. Chair. And I think, as Councillor Ferrier said, it's not that far down the road.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Okay, we do have it on the floor with a seconder. No more comments, no more questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Moving on to 8.2, RPT-12, RPT-21-41, purchase a firefighter training tower. Can I get a mover to get that on the table? Councillor Howes, Councillor Gatward. Any questions about this report? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moving on to 8.3, RPT-21-45, State of Infrastructure and Asset Management Plan for roads. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Bell, seconder. Councillor McAlpine. Councillor Gatward, question?
Yes, I do have a question. I was looking through this report, and on page 274 or 23 of the actual package, 8.3, there's a chart there of road sections with potential capacity need. And I noted that the count years in the center column are really out of date. This report was done recently, and I'm wondering why we didn't have more up-to-date traffic count years.
Who can answer that?
We go
Anybody
from
go?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Gower. I'll have to confirm as to why the particular data was used and why there wasn't more. I actually can see a couple of sections there where I'm surprised it's not more recent as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this goes from 2008. Well, the most recent one is 2016, and I know that we've done traffic counts on Cockship Road in the last few years, and I'm
Yeah, I think
thinking
Mr. Walton's going to look into that because he agrees with you there, Councillor Gatward. Any other questions? Was
Will
that your
we
only
get-
question, Councillor Gatward?
Yes, will we get an updated report?
Through the chair to Councillor Gower, I'll confirm why these were used and what the implications of that are. I doubt that we'll be updating the report, but I'll give an explanation.
Yeah, like the count year, if we have a count for 2019, for instance, on any of these roads, what would the average annual daily traffic count be now? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bell, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd just like to say I thought the report was excellent. Hell of a lot of data, and it just shows how complex and large this system is. The slides on page 277 and 278 show the extent of our roadway system. And if people don't believe it's a big road system, then they should take a look at that. But my question is more focused on page 257, where it says 15.9% of the road system is deficient now, and now in big capital letters. And there it goes on to say we need to spend $90 million, and I guess now, if I read the report, I'm sure that's not going to happen. So maybe Rob could explain how we will deal with $90 million worth of deficiencies by the end of this year.
Mr. Walton.
Through the chair to Councillor Bell. Before I worked for municipality, which I've worked for more than 20 years, I worked in consulting. I've written some roads need studies, and this stated infrastructure report is basically the new term for a roads need study. Every municipality that ever wrote one of these for had a number that was like that. Clearly, smaller municipalities would have a smaller number, bigger municipalities would have a bigger number. There isn't a municipality around that has that number that's zero. Like if you drive around any of your adjacent municipalities, you drive around roads where there's cracks in the roads, where there's the odd pothole and the like. So we will never bring that number to zero. As stated in a couple places in the report, what you're trying to achieve is to keep your adequacy of your road network at the level it's at or increasing, not decreasing. And it's noted in the report that we're spending plus or minus $10 million a year right now on road rehabilitation. And the calculation in this report is that it should be 15.8. I'm not entirely sure that that's the right number, but I can definitely vouch the number needs to be higher than 10. It's probably some number higher than 10, maybe somewhat less than 15.8. I'm not really sure. And the problem with identifying these needs like this and looking, it's all part of asset management. And this is a big piece of the asset management plan, which we'll have tried to complete by July 1st, which is going to be a challenge because of what we've been through in the last year. But this is a big piece of that report. And it isn't just the roads that have deficiencies. We do every 2 years, we do the OSMs, the structure maintenance review on every bridge greater than 3 meters. We'll be bringing forward the needs on water and wastewater. They're daunting numbers when you add them all up.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Just to reinforce the numbers you were talking about, the 90 million was for now, and for the 1 to 10 year calls, it looked for another 117 million. So that's 200 million in total. So if we spend 15 million a year, we're making a big dent in that total number. And I'd be reasonably confident that spending 150 million will deal with the worst of the issues, make our road system an awful lot better. And in fact, on page 270, there's a graph which shows how you actually achieve that improved performance. And if we follow that line, I'd be very confident. But just a question, have we in our long-term planning earmarked that $15 million per year?
Rob?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, no, that number has not been, this is the first time council has actually seen that number. And as we bring back more information on asset management and look towards future capital budgets. These numbers will be discussed in more detail as we do that over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to say right off the bat, I'm disappointed, actually. I would have preferred these guys to come forward because there's, for a presentation. I would have done that. There's a lot of information here and it's really, really important stuff. So I'm going to start with a few questions. You might want to have Heather time me. First question, it's on page 259 of our package, page 9 of the report. And it talks about, okay, Freddie, please bear with me. Number 7, gravel road conversions to hardtop surface should be continued as part of a long-term asset management strategy. Why? I don't understand that. I like the idea of gravel road conversion to hardtop surface, but I don't know, what are they getting at when they say that? Any idea, Rob? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Walton.
Through the chair to Councillor Miller. What they're saying is that we have some gravel roads which probably have the daily traffic to
justify
have the need to be hard surface, and then that we could show over time that we would spend less. It would be less costly to the municipality to have those roads hard surface for long-term maintenance requirements. Is what it's saying.
And I think we were working towards that strategy at one time. Okay, page 256.
So as part of this, can I continue on? As part of the report, I did mention that as part of the transportation master plan, we're going to be looking at the plan for gravel to hard surface and bring a plan forward. There's somewhat just less than 200 kilometers of roads that we have left that are not hard surface. And off the top of my head, I'd say that there's probably a good strategy involved in hard surfacing about half of those. And then the other half are such low volume or geometry issue roads and the like that you could never justify hard surfacing. And the plan is to bring council the knowledge of what it would cost to do those over, say, a 10-year period, and what we would have to add into the levy to do that, and a plan to do that, and then make a decision. Are we going to do this or not?
Okay, actually, that's awesome. I didn't know that was coming, so I look forward to that. Some weeks we get so many calls, you swear that if you didn't know better, all our roads were terrible gravel roads. So, and I know they're not, but some weeks, based on the volume of calls we get, it seems like, especially after a heavy rainstorm. Page 256 of our report, it says the county does not count the type of vehicle. So we do a traffic count, average daily traffic count, and we don't count the trucks. Now, trucks count for, I don't know what it is the equivalent of 5,000 to 6,000 cars or something like that, as far as wear and tear goes on the road. Why don't we count trucks versus cars? Is this something we can do, or is this something out of our capability?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, there are ways of having traffic counters which count trucks, and I think that there's strategic spots where we should be doing that, and there's some places where it's probably we could live with what the technology would or what the data would show us that the averages would be. And I think in the future we should be doing more strategic counting of trucks. I'll have to check into, under the transportation master plan, we are doing a certain amount of traffic counting, and I'll check in to see. Certainly some of that will include that, because we're doing some planning around trucks and some in the transportation master plan. So I will look into that a little bit more.
When I read that, it seemed to make sense, because dollars are limited. Everybody knows that. And given the fact that these guys are saying we are not hitting our long-term sustainability funding of 15.8 million. So I think, and I think you guys do a good job, but we got to be very strategic in how we spend that money. Next question, page 257 of our report. They state, when rural and semi-urban road sections are rehabilitated, it does not appear that drainage issues are addressed. I found that a rather odd thing to read, because I always remember Mike Tout talking about, if you don't have good drainage, you're not going to have good roads. What are they saying with that? Do we need to do a better job, or is this something you see across different municipalities, or can you explain that at all?
Rob?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller. There's probably a couple of things here. Especially in semi-urbans, it's very difficult to deal with drainage issues in semi-urban areas. Nobody wants you going cleaning out ditches and when their ditches are their lawns. So it's a difficult thing to deal with. There's no doubt about that. And probably in a aggressive roads rehab program, we would do more ditching, more frequent ditching as well. I believe that was it. And this is the author of the report's opinion. I wouldn't necessarily say it's entirely mine, but I will stand behind those two comments that certainly in the semi-urban areas, it's very difficult to do. I do recall earlier in the meeting tonight, Councillor Chambers talking about some ditches that wanted to be filled in a subdivision in Burford. And I've toured through that subdivision and had a look at, what happened there. And it's always interesting. You design these subdivisions with these ditches in them to create the proper drainage. Then nobody wants, some people fill them in on their own. And then you go and try and do something, you've got to deal with all of the other infrastructure that's there as well. So,
well, the drainage issue, it kind of goes back to a bit of a theme from that report's author that I got out of it. And he I think he takes fix the roof first if it's leaking, right? So it doesn't cause, you more, it doesn't cost more down the road. That's what I got, where he talks about maybe doing some rehab to roads before they need, to extend the life of them. That's what I got. And I think it goes back, and Councillor Bell talked on this too, that 15.8 million per year, which he's saying we need for long-term sustainability. And this is more of a comment than anything. I just say I was extremely frustrated to read that, because those around this table that were on the previous council will remember that we had the asset management plan come out, and we worked very, very hard to make sure that we were funded. We were properly funded. We were one of the few municipalities in Ontario to actually get that. And I think Councillor Boom at the time led us kind of kicking and screaming to fund it properly, but we did. It was just put in the budget, and we kind of sucked it up. And then to read that, we're spending $10 million on a road, and that's probably not enough. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to read. So, but from what you said, Rob, through Mr. Chair, you said you don't think that 15.8 million might be accurate. It might be a little bit more though. So,
through the chair to Councillor Miller. What I said is that that's the calculation in this report, and over time and doing more work on the asset management, we'll come to what that number needs to be. Just getting back to the issue of drainage, though, there are definitely some road sections in the county where I'd agree. And you'll note that with the study that we're doing in Burford, we've said that in the consultation with the people that we have to improve the drainage system in Burford there's many roads here we have no drainage system at all, and we need to improve that before we rebuild those roads, or we'll be in trouble on those roads. So we certainly have an eye towards improving our look at drainage as we're doing the roads, and it's on our radar.
Okay. As long as it's on your radar, maybe the new drainage manager can, I don't know who that's going to be, but maybe they can help out too. So yeah, like I say, it's a great report. Like I say, if I was doing this, I would have had the author in to present it, because there's a lot of fantastic information. And those charts, I don't know. They were worth 1,000 words each. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, just a couple things for those that are watching online. It is a fantastic report, and I know I've received many calls as far as roads being redone and that sort of thing. And there is, as was said here tonight, there's a ton of information in this report, and it is available to the public. So I would suggest that anybody that is interested in it to have a read. There is a lot of information, but there's a lot of good information in it. And as far as with what Councillor Miller was saying earlier, I was kind of surprised at that as well, because it was Councillor Boom and I that they really pushed for the asset management there a couple of years ago, and we thought we were in a pretty good place. Well, we are, don't get me wrong, but apparently maybe we should have done more. But at any rate, we are where we are. Excellent report. It's moved, it's seconded. No other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, moving on to 8.4. RPT-21-46, the Governor's Road West Municipal Class EA. Can I get a mover, please? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Bell, any questions on that report? No questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.5, CEO, Mr. Bradley, verbal update for us.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chair. And it came up at the last meeting about general manager reports. And just I think when we committed to the new committee system, we agreed that there would be no general managers reports because general managers usually put their information forward in the form of a report. But there would be a CAO's report at the strategy committee, which right now is on hiatus. So we put a CAO's report on this agenda and we'll carry that forward for the time being while we're just functioning with this single committee each month. So I just had a few things I wanted to update on, and I'd start and just note that our emergency operations center is still meeting. We're meeting twice weekly. Today, this afternoon, was our 90th operational period since the start of the COVID-19 emergency. So it's been a long haul for us. You'll notice that we have reopened a number of services based on the transition to the orange restrict zone in the provincial framework. Our customer service offices at Paris and Burford opened this morning, as well as the 4 arena complexes opened for restricted amounts of usage. In the coming few days or weeks, we're going to be re-looking at the potential opening of the community centers, the rest of the community centers in the community, depending on where we go with the restrictions. We'll also be looking at potentially increasing or lengthening the arena season this year to allow the minor hockey leagues to at least have as much of a season as they can. And we haven't made that decision completely, and we may be coming back to council with that. And we're also working with the Brant County Health Unit to look at possible vaccination clinics at some of our facilities. And again, we're in early days with that yet, but good conversations happening around that. So lots of COVID-19 activities still going on in the organization. A few reports that we've got pending. Report on lawn bowling clubs was requested, and we will have a report at next month's committee cycle. The council meeting that's later this month, I think actually Tuesday, you will be receiving a report on council structure from the clerk, and I think there has been some consultation around that as well. And a fairly significant update will be occurring at the Planning and Development Committee on the official plan process in March. So the last thing I wanted to mention, Mr. Chair, and I think most of you already saw this notice, that Robin Hewitt has announced that she will be retiring from her current position of General Manager of Corporate Services. And Robin joined us in 2016. She had the difficult task of replacing me, unenviable task of replacing me in that position, and she's been in that position since. She has really had a number of notable accomplishments with the organization. She's led the budget process every year for the past 5 years. She led an information systems strategic plan a few years ago that completely modernized our internal IT systems that we're all enjoying. And I think the most recent accomplishment that she has mostly completed, but we've yet to present, is a 10-year financial plan. And it actually addressed quite a number of the items that we were just talking about in the previous report. And so we are hoping to be presenting that in the upcoming couple of months. And on that note, Robin has agreed to stay on with us in basically a contractual role for another year to finish off a few of these projects, as well as a number of other projects that she's been working on. So I'm sure all of you will join me in congratulating Robin on this retirement. Happy that she's going to stay around a little longer to help us through a few things during a difficult and challenging time here. And hopefully all of you will get a chance to see her in person before she completes her time here, and wish her all the best. So that's my update, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I guess I don't want to go through everybody here, Robin, but on behalf of council, thank you very much for all your support for us over your years. I must admit, I was quite upset when I heard the news, but then I was happy to hear that you're staying on for another year. So that's good. I appreciate that, and enjoy your well-deserved retirement when it comes, but not yet.
Thank you.
Not yet. Any questions to Michael? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, my question is to Robin, if she's still on the line. Will she still be handling the investment committee?
Robin?
So through you, Mr. Chair, I am not continuing with the investment committee. I can tell you that we did discuss the investment committee a short time ago, and I think we're looking at an investment committee meeting probably late spring or early summer.
Thank you, because our May meeting got canceled because of COVID. Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay. Thank you for your report there, Michael. We will move on to section 9, communications. 9.1, there is a communication there. Do we want to get it on the floor? How do we want to, Councillor Farrer to receive it? And Councillor Howes? Any questions on that report? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My simple reading of this is that we should be taking more property tax from aggregate operations. Am I wrong in that?
That was my understanding of the report. If somebody wants else to jump in there. Mr. Mayor?
I have a meeting with Mayor Sue Foxton and the Mayor of Cambridge, I believe next week with the Minister, or the MPP, I'm sorry. And I've just missed a call tonight from Steve Clark. He just called me and I couldn't take the call, so there you go. Leave the ministers hanging. That's always a good thing to do. He said he'll call me back later, so I'm not sure what he wants, but I know that we are going to be discussing as the 3 mayors of North Dumfries, Cambridge, and Brant, and it's all about aggregate. So I'll be able to report on that after our meeting.
Councillor Bell, follow up?
Just a quick follow up. Does anybody have any sense of the dimensions of the under recovery from aggregate operations?
Councillor Goward, you got a question? Or are you going to respond to that?
I can respond and maybe assist committee a bit, Mr. Chair. I emailed with our senior tax person regarding this matter earlier, and the monies we lost when the assessment category for aggregate properties was changed, we lost approximately $30,000. But then they increased the fees we get from the tonnage that comes out of the gravel pits. So we gained almost $100,000 by that, making up the $30,000 we lost in the assessment category change. And our staff are aware of this issue with MPAC. And right now the County of Brant has an appeal into MPAC to appeal the assessment on our aggregate properties. And that came from Christine Staley today. So her advice was that we should not be lobbying through a firm that's being suggested in 9.1 when we have an appeal pending. So I thought I should let committee know that.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And I'm assuming that, Mr. Mayor, when you have your meeting with the other mayors, that that will be discussed in there as well. And just for committee, that's why I suggested that we receive this, because I agree that we should get all our information first before we make any decision as to going with this party or that party. So just to confirm to committee here, the motion that is on the table is just to receive this report. It's not to contribute the $2,100. Any other questions? Councillor Miller.
I just point out Mayor Fox, and she's very active on the gravel file for obvious reasons, given how many they have up in their neck of the woods. Mind you, we're not that far behind the levy that Councillor Gatward refers to. I mean, that took years, right? Took years to get that increase. And even now, it's still extremely low compared to other jurisdictions. We're less than half of what Quebec is. We're a fraction of what they are, so over in the United Kingdom. So it was a little frustrating when they were reclassified and we did lose that 30,000. It's frustrating because we as residential taxpayers and farm taxpayers, we are subsidizing these gravel operations. So I wish them all the luck. If we could join them and our appeal, if we're done our appeal, I would certainly welcome that opportunity because they're fighting the good fight and they're doing it on our behalf.
Heard of that. Okay. Okay. So again, we've got a motion on the table to just receive this report. Any other questions? All in favor to receive? Opposed? Carried. Okay. There was no mention of other business for tonight. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wonder if I could take a minute to, through you, to ask CAO Bradley some advice with regard to an issue that may be germane. And that's, I was approached today by the Royal Canadian Legion, the Burford Cathcart Harley branch, and they're looking to refurbish their cenotaph, and there's some issues associated with ownership, et cetera. I'm just wondering who the correct staff person should I direct them to in order to maybe get the project underway. I'd like to refer it to Michael, but I know he's pretty busy, and he's probably got the correct place to do it. If that's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, if I could do that.
Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to take the initial lead on that, and then we can figure out what the scope of what they want to do, and then figure out what staff member or members we need to connect them with. So feel free to pass them along to me.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to number 11 in camera. Can I get a motion to move in camera, please? Councillor Howes, second, Councillor Coleman. All those in favor? I don't believe there's anything that needs to be done with that in open session. So we will just go on to the next, which is the next meeting is March the 16th at 6 p.m. So as Mayor Bailey would say, anything further for the betterment of the county? That being said, motion to adjourn, please. Mayor Bailey. Have a good evening, folks.